As we enter our second week of Go Practice Daily, I think it's time we change things up a little bit. So let's get to it. Hi, Bryan from Airflow Music here once again. Welcome back. This is day 6 in our Go Practice Daily series. Now, this video will come to you on a Monday, so even though we're not quite through an entire week of these daily videos, Monday seems like a good day to switch the setup, and so we're going to alter the exercises slightly for today. Up to this point we've been doing the daily drill set 1, and from this video onwards for the next few days we'll do daily drill set 2. Thank you to all of you who responded to the question of the day, particularly yesterday. It's good to hear about how people's practice timing, the timing of their practice routines, I guess you would say, comes together. As I expected, people are fitting it around their schedules as best they can. And that's of course to be expected. So thank you for that. Because I'm going to be explaining the exercises and the changes that are being made in this second set, there's no question of the day, at least at this point in the video. So perhaps we'll have one later on. Anyway, let's look at the differences that are coming up. As we switch to this second set, you will see in this set of exercises and other ones moving forward in subsequent weeks that what I'm doing is making small adjustments to the exercises as we go. Particularly in exercise 1, it's only one note different per line. Okay, we're just trying to gradually expand some things and get some slightly different movements happening. Exercise 2 has more differences in it because I was already wanting to edit that and add just a little something to it anyway. So we're doing both of these things as we enter this new set. Here's exercise 1, the new version from set 2, up on the screen right now. And as you'll see, it's basically the same thing, except that in total we're covering a whole step. We're still making these small gentle movements though. That's the only real difference to this exercise that we're dealing with for the next few days. Now, as always, the new set of exercises are available as a free downloadable PDF from the Airflow Music online store. Same thing with those as normal. You will find the link to those in the description below this video. Okay, so please go ahead and grab those so you can follow and play along. Other than that, exercise 1, we're not really changing anything else about how we're doing this. We have the option of playing it long setting or not, as before. I'm playing it long setting all the way through, and I hope that some of you are building towards doing that, even if you're not quite all the way there yet. We are playing this at 60 beats a minute. We are breath starting the first note of each 4-bar phrase. And on the rest bar, we are going to breathe out 2 beats in time, breathe in 2 beats in time, so we can land nicely on the downbeat. As always, we are tapping our foot and subdividing the beat because this is a Caruso style exercise and the goal is to play really accurately in time. Let's get to it and see how it goes. Okay, so there's our first spin through set 2, exercise 1. How'd you find this so far? Obviously it's very similar to what we were playing last week, so if you've been playing along with me up to this point, I imagine that you're really having no problems with it at all. It certainly seemed kind of routine for me just to make that small change. We'll see how we progress with that as the other small changes get made in the coming weeks. Any questions or comments about that so far? I know it's a small change, but there is actually an eventual plan to all of this, so you'll get to see it unfolding as we go. Right, let's move on to exercise 2, which is popping up on the screen right now, and as you'll see, this one is a little bit more edited, because we're maintaining the same thing. We're going to follow the same pattern every time. So if we play a pattern in exercise 1, that same pattern of notes is going to be used in exercise 2 as well. The difference here being that the edits I already wanted to make to exercise 2 was just to extend it a little bit. The 5-bar thing felt awkward to me counting it, and also I felt like I wanted just a little more face time in every key. So we've extended this by 1 bar, so now the pattern is 3 bars of 8th notes or quavers, followed by a whole note, followed by 2 bars rest. So what we're going to do is we are going to play 1st bar slurred, 2nd bar tongued, and on the 3rd bar the first 2 beats are slurred and the second 2 beats are tongued. So we keep mixing those articulations. That'll be good for keeping a unified air approach. No matter what we're playing, we're just either adding the tongue for the articulation there or not. Because there should really be no difference in how the air moves and how we feel about playing these things, even though one can sometimes develop. Okay, so that's the idea with this. Apart from that, we're now making the extra rising chromatic note instead of just the pair of half steps. But other than that, it's the same exercise, just extended by 1 bar. So I don't think it warrants much more explanation. For the time being, we're going to stick at 80 beats a minute. So this is going to take slightly longer, but other than that, it's not really going to be any more difficult. Okay? So, let's get into exercise 2. 1, 2. Okay, so that's our first run through set 2, exercise 2. How did you find it? For me, this was, largely similar to it has been. I got thrown off by the different pattern a couple of times. I think on the 10th line, I made a misarticulation. Started tonguing earlier than I should have done. And something didn't speak on one of the lower ones. Probably something beginning on low A or something like that. One of the articulations didn't speak well. But that's something to keep an eye on, something to keep moving with. Generally, I thought it went absolutely fine, and I'm rather enjoying how my chops are feeling playing these exercises now we're close to a week in. Having that measure of consistency every day has been really nice. And I've noticed when I've been playing other things, whether here in the practice room or outside in the world, I've noticed that my slotting has improved, and I have a good level of security with how all my notes feel right now, which is nice to feel. So that's a good benefit from having done these things. Okay? How are you getting on with this? This is what I'd like to know. No real question of the day today, apart from the fact of how are you getting on with this? How do you like this new version of the exercises compared to the old one? I'm interested to hear what your thoughts are. Okay? So that's about it for this one. I will be back for a second run through set 2 with you tomorrow. Of course, once again, these exercises are available to download from the Airflow Music Online store. It's a free PDF. You just got to put it through as a free transaction in the cart. Okay? So that should be easy enough to find. The link is in the description below this video on YouTube. Okay, so I'm going to go off and get the rest of the things I have to do this evening done. And until I see you tomorrow, I think you know what to do. Go practice.